Didi vs. Uber, Team 3, Nathan and Tony. Uber, a global leader in ride-hailing services, is set to enter the Chinese market, aiming to capitalize on its rapidly urbanizing population and growing reliance on mobile transportation. However, to succeed, Uber might navigate a competitive landscape and understand local consumer preferences. The strategic goals are two primary objectives: to establish a 20% market share in major Chinese cities within 2 years, and to achieve profitability within 4 years by leveraging its global expertise. The market opportunity is that China is the largest ride-hailing market, with demand driven by a growing middle class and increasing urbanization. It's projected to grow at 8% annually, with over 600 million urban residents using ride-hailing services by 2026. Uber's innovative technology and brand recognition uniquely position it to capture this opportunity. The current situation and challenges include the market is dominated by a local competitor, Didi, and this regulatory environment is complex, with the stringent local rules. Adapting to local consumer preferences such as prevalence of super apps like WeChat for payments is crucial for their success. Some key strategic initiatives could be to include the forging of local partnerships with payment providers. The app will be located with multi-language support and cashless payment systems tailored to local behaviors and competitive pricing strategies. These will include subsidies and promotions to attract users. Uber will focus on operational scalability, starting in major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, then expanding to 2 and 3-tier cities. Compliance with local laws and engaging in corporate social responsibility initiatives such as promoting electric vehicles will also be priorities. The resource allocation and risk management. Uber plans to invest $1 billion for this entry, covering marketing, driver recruitment, and technology development. A dedicated local team will monitor market dynamics to mitigate risks from regulatory challenges and local competition. The expected outcomes is to get a 5% market share in the first year, growing to 20% by year 3. With the projected break-even point by year 4, these efforts will solidify Uber's position in the world's largest ride-hailing market. The strategic issue about the entry into Chinese markets. Didi is the dominant local competitor in China, controlling a substantial share of the ride-hailing market. This creates a significant barrier for Uber, which must find ways to differentiate its service to capture market share despite Didi's strong presence. Additionally, China's regulatory complexity is challenged with strict rules regarding driver's licensing, vehicle registration, and data localization that vary by city. Uber must navigate these regulations while maintaining its global operational model. Cultural adaptation is also essential, as Chinese consumers prefer super apps like WeChat for payments and services. Therefore, Uber needs to localize its technology and services to meet these unique preferences. To compete effectively, Uber may have to engage in price wars and offer subsidies, raising the strategic issue of balancing rapid expansion with the path to profitability in a highly competitive and cost-intensive environment. Finally, establishing local partnerships with payment platforms and regulators is crucial for success, and Uber must leverage these collaborations to navigate entry barriers to gain market traction in China.
Uber experienced significant losses in China, with annual losses of approximately $1 billion. These losses were a direct result of Uber's heavy investment into subsidies and expansion efforts, which were intended to capture market share from Didi. Despite these investments, the high operational costs and aggressive pricing strategies prevented Uber from becoming profitable in the Chinese market. At its peak, Didi controlled over 80% of the ride-hailing market, while Uber struggled with just 15% market share. Didi's partnerships with local tech giants such as Tencent and Alibaba gave it a competitive edge through access to platforms like WeChat, which helped drive adoption among Chinese users. Uber's inability to overcome Didi's dominance in the market limited its growth and led to significant competitive pressure. Uber invested billions into subsidies for both drivers and riders to boost usage and loyalty. These subsidies allowed drivers to double their earnings during peak hours, which helped Uber maintain supply, but it resulted in unsustainable financial losses. This price war with Didi increased market activity temporarily, but heavily contributed to Uber's $1 billion in annual losses. Next, I'll talk about the external and internal forces affecting the case. Starting with the external forces, we have the regulatory environment. In China, strict regulations, particularly for foreign companies like Uber, made it hard to operate freely. Local governments controlled licensing, so Uber had to form partnerships to comply, which slowed their expansion. Second, there was intense competition from Didi, which controlled over 80% of the market. Backed by Tencent and Alibaba, Didi had a strong competitive edge, making it tough for Uber to gain market share. Third, we have cultural preferences in China, which played a big role. Chinese users preferred using super apps like WeChat that offer multiple services. Didi's integration with WeChat made it far more convenient for users, while Uber's standalone app couldn't compete as effectively. Now, looking at the internal forces. First, Uber's global strategy didn't adapt quickly enough to the local market. They were slow to integrate local payment systems like WeChat Pay and Alipay, which made it hard to attract users early on. Second, Uber's financial strategy involved heavy subsidies for both drivers and riders to compete with Didi. While it temporarily boosted market share, this approach caused Uber to lose around $1 billion annually, which was not sustainable. Lastly, Uber's technology and operations were not fully adapted to China's infrastructure. Didi had better local integration and tech capabilities, giving them a clear operational advantage. In summary, Uber faced regulatory, competitive, and cultural barriers externally, while internally, slow localization, financial strain from subsidies, and operational inefficiencies hindered its success in China. To understand Uber's competitive position in China, we apply Porter's 5 forces. The first force, competitive rivalry, was extremely high. Didi controlled over 80% of the market, creating significant pressure on Uber to compete. This rivalry led to a price war, where Uber had to offer massive subsidies to both drivers and riders just to stay in the game. This aggressive competition increased costs and squeezed profitability, which ultimately weakened Uber's financial position. The second force, threat of new entrants, was low. The barriers to entry in the Chinese ride-hailing market were high, largely due to strict regulations and Didi's dominant market share. This meant that there was little to no risk of new competitors emerging. The third force, bargaining power of suppliers, refers to the power that drivers held. Because both Uber and Didi were offering significant incentives to attract drivers, the bargaining power of drivers was moderate. Drivers had options and could switch between platforms to get better pay, but ultimately, they were still at the mercy of whichever company offered better terms. Next, bargaining power of customers was very high. With both Uber and Didi heavily subsidizing rides, riders could easily switch between the two platforms based on whichever offered a cheaper or a better experience. This gave customers considerable power and forced Uber to continually offer discounts, adding more pressure to its finances. Finally, the threat of substitutes was moderate. While traditional taxis and public transportation remained alternatives, ride-hailing offered much more convenience. As a result, while other transportation options were present, they weren't strong enough to pull users away from Uber or Didi in large numbers. Next, we used a Vero analysis to assess Uber's internal capabilities. Starting with value, Uber's brand and global network added value, but this wasn't enough in China. Didi's deep local knowledge and dominance overshadowed Uber's international reputation, meaning that Uber's brand didn't provide the competitive edge it had hoped for. In terms of rarity, Uber's technology and global infrastructure were strong, but in the Chinese market, these assets weren't rare. Didi had similar, if not superior capabilities, such as its integration with local platforms like WeChat, which meant that Uber couldn't differentiate itself based on technology alone. Next is imitability. Uber's platform was not difficult to imitate in China. Didi quickly adopted and integrated similar ride-hailing services, driver incentives, and app features. As a result, Uber's competitive advantages were easily copied, making it difficult for the company to maintain a unique position in the market. Lastly, organization proved to be a key challenge for Uber. While Uber's global operations were efficient, its inability to fully adapt to the local Chinese market hindered its success. Didi, on the other hand, was better organized to meet local needs, particularly through its partnerships with tech giants like Tencent and Alibaba. Uber's slower adaptation to local payment methods and regulations limited its ability to capitalize on its existing resources.
Uber's exit from the Chinese market highlights several strategic missteps that can be avoided. One critical area is the need for stronger local partnerships and alliances. Instead of trying to build operations from scratch, Uber pursues strategic joint ventures with established local players or conglomerates with government connections. Collaborating with local firms familiar with regulatory and consumer behavior facilitates smoother navigation of the Chinese market. Moreover, forming partnerships with the tech giants like Baidu, Alibaba, and JD.com integrates Uber's services with their platforms. leveraging their influence and market reach. Another significant factor in the necessity for a tailored product offering, Uber develops localized services that cater to Chinese consumer preferences, such as offering low-cost ride options, carpooling, or bicycle sharing services, integrating widely used payment platforms like WeChat and Alipay. Early on enhances the user experience. Furthermore, adopting local regulations more proactively and collaborating with local governments on compliance expedites their entry and operations. Additionally, mergers and acquisitions provide Uber with a faster route to market penetration. Acquiring smaller regional competitors eases competitive pressure and expands Uber's reach. Instead of engaging in costly price wars with Didi, a collaborative investment in Didi or a similar firm helps Uber gain valuable local insights. Focusing on niche markets such as premium ride-hailing services for wealthier consumers differentiates Uber from Didi in the mass market. Moreover, controlled and sustainable expansion strategies allows Uber to establish a strong foothold in key cities like Beijing and Shanghai before expanding to smaller, under-deserved markets. Building a stronger government relations and adopting a cooperative regulatory stance helps Uber navigate regulatory challenges more effectively. Engaging in public-private partnerships and aligning with China's economic goals improves their standing with policymakers. Finally, positioning itself as a technological innovator by investing in autonomous vehicles and leveraging advanced data analytics enhance operational efficiency and consumer appeal. Ultimately, by exploring these strategies, stronger local partnerships, tailored services, and sustainable growth, Uber sustains a presence in China and competes more effectively against Didi. To effectively establish a presence in China, Uber must prioritize forming local partnerships within the first 6 months. Identifying key local players such as Baidu and Alibaba is crucial for negotiating joint ventures or alliances that facilitate shared infrastructure and technology. These collaborations should extend to market strategies, regulatory compliance, and enhancing brand visibility in the competitive landscape. In the following 3 to 9 months, Uber should focus on localizing its services by integrating popular payment options like WeChat and Alipay to ensure seamless transactions for users. Conducting thorough market research will help introduce region-specific features and pricing models that cater to local preferences. Additionally, developing Mandarin-first customer support and tailored marketing campaigns will further resonate with Chinese consumers. As Uber seeks to expand into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities within the 6 to 12-month timeframe, targeting niche markets becomes vital. By offering premium services such as Uber Black and tailored options for corporate clients, Uber can avoid competition with Didi while tapping into a profitable segment. Ongoing efforts should also focus on controlling growth. This includes phasing out costly subsidies and implementing targeted promotions for specific customer segments, like commuters, while carefully monitoring the pace of expansion to achieve a balance between profitability and market penetration. Strengthening government relations is essential throughout the year. Hiring local experts to navigate complex regulations and engaging with initiatives, such as the Smart City Project and green transportation efforts, will advocate for favorable regulations that align with Uber's technology and services. Finally, innovation must drive Uber's strategy by investing in research and development for autonomous vehicles and AI-driven ride optimization. Uber can differentiate itself in the market. Collaborating with Chinese universities and tech startups on mobility solutions and implementing pilot programs in key cities will enable Uber to test technologies and gather valuable feedback. By pursuing these strategies, Uber can enhance its competitiveness and visibility in the Chinese ride-hailing market. For a quick summary, the strategic issue Uber faced intense competition from Didi in China. The key financial and strategic indicator, Uber invested over $2 billion. Some external and internal forcements were government regulations favored local companies. Here we see the effects of a SWOT and PESTLE analysis, and some primary and secondary alternatives. The implementation plan includes local partnerships, niche marketing, and eventual exit strategy via the Didi merger.